everyone. Welcome to the Office Hours Admissions Edition. My name's Jenny Lamb. I'm a 13 here at Dartmouth College. I'm from Pasadena, California, and I'm joined today by Dean of Admissions and of Financial Aid, Dean Laskaris, and I believe she's also a class of 1984.
I am. Yes.
Well, welcome. We're here today to basically answer your questions about admissions and basically anything you have. We are basically on the chat with you, so we'll be fielding your questions. Anything you have to say, just type it into the chat, and hopefully we'll get to your questions. If not, we have a bunch of admissions officers and students also online just to basically type in, feed you links, give you, great connections to whatever other questions that we might not be able to get to.
Right, and what we hope, it's 4 days before the official November 1st deadline for early decision. So this is your chance to really ask us whatever's on your mind, whatever's stressing you out. We hope the next 4 days aren't too stressful, so use us as a resource. And
Exactly.
As Jenny said, we've got lots of our friends and colleagues who are standing by to help answer questions if we can't get to all of them this evening.
Okay, well, we actually have our first question up from E. Williams. And their question is, if I apply early decision and am accepted but cannot afford it, am I, quote, off the hook?
Sure, that's a great question. We do work with all admitted students to make sure that our financial aid will cover the cost of your family's demonstrated need, but there are a very small number of occasions where a student and family feel the financial aid really isn't what they think makes the most sense in terms of allowing that student to come to Dartmouth. So in that sense, we would release you from the early decision commitment, but that's putting the cart way before the horse. Our financial aid office is really committed to working with every admitted student and their family. So we hope that students, before making any decisions like that, will be back in touch with our office so that we can work together to hopefully make it all work for you.
Great, great. Next question is Yodia. I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but how important is the interview?
Sure. The interview is really one of many opportunities that students have to share information about themselves. Certainly your essay, your letters of recommendation, your peer evaluation are all opportunities for people to write something on your behalf or for you to write something on your behalf. But the interview is a chance, just like we're having a conversation today, for you to sit down with a graduate of the college, maybe two graduates of the college, and just have a conversation. Yeah. Who are you as a person? What do you like to do? What's attracted you to Dartmouth? So it's meant to be a two-way conversation. They'll try to sell you on Dartmouth, but obviously if you're applying early, you're already sold. And try to get a lot of information that they can then convey to us in the admissions office. So I find it a really helpful part of the application because it feels very personal, it feels very real, because someone's had a conversation with you versus just a written essay, a written recommendation. But it feels very conversational.
Right. And on that same note, can you get an interview at Dartmouth?
We unfortunately don't offer interviews on campus. We just don't have the staff to meet the demand. And so we really do encourage all students to do the alumni interview. And I don't know if you had an alumni interview.
I did. Yeah, I did. And it was great. It was right in my area. I got an email from a Dartmouth alum, and we met for lunch. And it was, just like you were saying, a two-way conversation. It was great. Really no pressure.
Right,
just,
exactly.
I mean, he sold me on Dartmouth. So it was,
and here you are, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So let's see. The next one that we have here is, does the Dplan make college education more versatile and liberal, or does it make the workload more rigorous compared to the semester system?
Wow, Jenny, I might let you answer that from the student perspective.
From a student perspective.
You're living it, right?
Well, I would have to say that it has basically made my college experience very unique in terms of the fact that I never thought that I was going to go and study abroad, but with the Dplan, and it basically made me think about that, and next term I'm actually going to Italy, and something that I never thought I was going to do. But because of the Dplan, because it's so easy to shift your schedule around and have, really, just amazing experiences, and it's only 3 months, it opens your schedule up to so many different amazing opportunities. And so while it does, put a certain amount of work into 10 weeks of time, you're only taking 3 to 4 classes as opposed to 5 to 6, I think, with a semester system.
Right.
And so you're really concentrated on those. And it also gives you really amazing opportunities to take off terms places you never expected, or find really great internships when no one else is really looking for one. And then you have this amazing experience for your sophomore summer, which everyone is required to be on for the Dplan. So, I mean, I think it's great.
Yeah, and I feel like every time I talk to students, I'm just amazed at how many different things that students do over the course of their 4 years because of the flexibility of the Dplan. And what's really great, I think, and this is sort of the admissions hat on, is that, or the recruiting hat on, is that all students, regardless of their major, can take advantage of the flexibility of the Dplan. So it's not just students who are perhaps majoring in humanities and some courses where you might think there's a logical study a language abroad kind of opportunity, but even students in the sciences, students thinking about the pre-health, following a pre-health program here at Dartmouth, all students can take advantage of the flexibility of the Dplan.
Absolutely, okay, and here we go. During summer sessions, do students take courses or participate in independent research? Well, on that same note, your sophomore summer, you are required to be on campus. I think there's maybe a touch of flexibility with that, but for the most part, students stay on campus, and you do take normal classes. You also, I believe, have the option of doing independent research in an off-term setting.
Off-term,
yeah, but I mean, if you want that to be the summer term, I think that could work.
Yeah.
But during your sophomore summer, most people do take classes. Okay, here we go. From Laura Smith, how does legacy affect someone's application?
Sure. That's a great question, Laura. A lot of people ask about the role that legacy plays in the admissions process. Here at Dartmouth, we really do value the connection that our alumni have to the college. They make possible so many wonderful opportunities, from our financial aid program to the kinds of opportunities that students have for internships and job opportunities after they graduate, a really strong and supportive alumni network. But as part of the admissions process, we do encourage students to let us know if a family member attended Dartmouth, a parent, a sibling, a grandparent. When we talk about a legacy applicant, we really focus on those students whose parents graduated from Dartmouth, but obviously if other family members have attended Dartmouth, that's fine to share that information with us. We do give our legacy applicants the benefit of an additional review in the process, but bottom line, the admissions process is really very competitive. It's a holistic and individualized review, so all students are admitted because they've demonstrated both academic excellence and the potential to really contribute to Dartmouth in some very tangible ways, both in and out of the classroom.
Right. Great. Okay, next one. James G. How is on-campus recruiting?
Wow, so James, you're already thinking about graduating from Dartmouth and getting a job. Our students do very, very well in landing internships and in landing in careers after they graduate from Dartmouth. There's quite a bit of on-campus recruiting that's happening with corporations, nonprofit as well as for-profit sector coming to campus, interviewing our students. So my sense in looking at the data, Dartmouth students are very successful in terms of landing careers, landing internships, getting into medical, business, engineering, and other professional schools and graduate schools. So we do a great job of preparing our students for that next step in their education.
Right, and all of that stuff's going on
right
now.
Yet,
Not yet.
I
have
a
few more years. Not quite ready for that.
Right.
Next one. What impact do your SAT subject scores have on your application? How should I choose which subject tests to submit?
Sure. As I said before, we have a holistic admissions review process, and so we are considering a wide range of information as part of our review, and that does include standardized testing. We don't specify which SAT-2 subject test that students take, although we do ask them to take any two. So I think you should choose the subjects that you feel are your best subjects. Some schools say very specifically you must submit one math or a science and another one, but for us we say any two. So choose the ones that you feel are your best. We review those SAT scores, the SAT 1s and 2s, in context of your entire application, and the admissions decision is based upon our sense of you as a whole person, a whole individual, and not just an SAT score.
That's good to know. Well, let's see. I think we're scrolling on down. Okay, from Daisy. You must get thousands of applicants. Do you truly read through all of them, or will you stop reading due to a weak essay / bad GPA?
Sure. Well, the first thing we do, well, I should say, yes, we read through all of them. We have to read fairly quickly, however, so a bad essay really doesn't help your candidacy, so certainly encourage you to, maybe ask a parent or a teacher to take a look at it just to make sure that you've certainly got your spelling and punctuation and grammar in order. But we do read all of our applications that we receive. I think, the essay is something that students really stress over, and thinking about how do they capture themselves in, 500 words or less. And my youngest daughter is a senior in high school, and she's going through the application process, so I see at home how stressful the college essay is. And what I tell her is what I tell all students: just relax, be yourself. There's no right or wrong answer. You're telling us about yourself. What you've done is interesting. We'd like to know about it. So pick something that's meaningful to you. And we see very few bad essays, and things that are poorly written.
Right.
And that is an indication that a student perhaps isn't prepared for to be a successful student at Dartmouth if they really have trouble constructing an essay about themselves or about a particular topic of interest. In terms of your GPA, most applicants to Dartmouth do present academic records that suggest that they will be good students here and they've done well in high school. To be honest, if you have a bad GPA, it's going to be hard for us to see you as a competitive applicant, because we're not sure you will be a successful student here. And,
right.
and we really don't want to admit students to Dartmouth whom we think will fail and really struggle. So.
Right.
But we will review your application before deciding that.
And in terms of, hearing from Luke, is it disadvantageous to apply as undecided rather than selecting a major?
For us, it doesn't matter what you choose when you select or indicate what you might want to study. And it's a non-binding question that we ask you to name your top 3 academic areas of interest. It's meant just to be informational for us. It doesn't bind you or commit you to that major. So I actually like to see students who are undecided, because I think that means they come to Dartmouth with a real openness to trying lots of different things. Although we have plenty of students who are pretty certain of what they want to do in college before they even apply. But I do like it when students are undecided. That says to me that they are willing to perhaps try some new subject areas they've never tried before.
Right. I think I was undecided first, and then I put 2 other ones below that, and I don't think I've taken a class in any of the other 2. I kind of came here, and it was just, everything was so different than what I expected.
Exactly.
So.
And as a sophomore, you'll formally declare your major at the end of your sophomore year. So,
so I still have a little bit of time.
You still have a little bit of time to figure that out. Yeah.
I still am figuring it out. So. Okay, next one. In previous years, the Common Application essay had a 500-word limit. This year, there is no hardline limit. Do you still prefer essays that are around 500 words?
Your teachers have probably told you this before, but use as many words as you need to answer the question. I think use your judgment. Obviously, we'd like it to be fleshed out a little bit. I don't think we can read 5,000 words, or even 1,000 words might be sort of on the upper end. But if you feel like you can say what you need to say in 500 words, that's fine. If you'd like to go beyond that, that's fine too. But just bear in mind that if it gets really lengthy and doesn't seem to come to a point, we might move on to another part of the application, because we're not sure where that essay is going.
Exactly. And on that same note, what would you say a standout essay is?
Yeah, good question. Well, to me, a standout essay is one that obviously piques my interest or piques my curiosity to know more about the student. It's not that it's always the most brilliantly written, but it usually has a kind of distinctive point of view. It tells a story, often humorous, sometimes very poignant, but it's something that makes me really see you as a whole person. One of my favorite essays from last year that I still remember was about a student had written this essay about getting up in front of the school talent show, and the way he set up the situation. He'd never done this before. He was backstage. He was nervous. His palms were sweating. There was this build up, and the crowd is out there. It's like a homecoming rally or something, and they have a talent show as part of it. And he gets on stage, and you're thinking the whole time, well, what is his talent? Because he never told us what his talent was in the essay. And then he talks about whipping out a Rubik's Cube and solving it in 1 minute, and the crowd going wild, So, and I just had a really great sense of this student as an actual living and breathing person. I think to me, that's what makes an essay stand out, because I can see you. I can see you in your element, in your school, in your home, in a situation. Feel like, wow, I can see what kind of person you might be in the Dartmouth community. Your essay really brings you to life. And it doesn't have to be a lofty and esoteric topic. It can be something like solving the Rubik's Cube in front of your whole high school, or just a favorite book or an experience, anything that you choose to write about. But it's the ones that stand out really, I think, when the students really come to life for me.
Absolutely. Okay. From TJF, if I had a bad GPA, but I'm currently taking all college classes and have an increasing GPA trend, are my chances still decent?
I guess it depends on how you define bad, and you put it in quotes.
Bad GPA.
A bad GPA. You know, I think being a parent has really helped me realize that students are not perfect. People aren't perfect. Students are certainly still maturing and growing and developing. We always like to see an increasing GPA trend. That's certainly a given. What we don't like is a downward slope on your GPA. So certainly if the GPA trend is up and the curriculum is rigorous and solid, you know, I think those students are also ones that we will consider very seriously. So, but of course it depends on how you define bad, but I'm assuming it's not that bad.
If it's in quotes.
If it's in quotes, yeah, hard to know.
Yeah. Okay, and then next we have, is there a pre-med or pre-law program at Dartmouth?
Do you want to tackle that from a student perspective?
There is a pre-med program. I am not on it. But I know I have numerous amounts of friends that are. So I know that is available. In terms of pre-law, I do not believe there is. Logistics of that, I'm not...
Yeah, I think what we can do is have some of our colleagues post some links to answer the question.
Right.
There certainly are a lot of students at Dartmouth that are pursuing pre-health and pre-law. They're not formal majors, so you wouldn't be a pre-med or pre-law major, but we certainly have lots of students who are thinking about medical school and have this great campus organization called the Nathan Smith Society that provides a lot of mentoring and internship and research opportunities. We have the largest teaching hospital north of Boston and south of Montreal, just 2 miles from campus, the Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center. We've got a great medical school here at Dartmouth, so there's a lot of support if you're thinking of pre-med or pre-health. Plus our college president is a physician, so there's a lot of interest in medicine here at Dartmouth. And then pre-law as well. Again, there are resources, there are mentors, there are student groups to really help students if they're thinking about going on to law school.
Okay, let's see. John Hamill Strauss, full name.
Yes.
Do you consider the peer evaluation more important than the teacher recommendations in making decisions?
You know, they're actually different. We're getting different information from your teacher or from your peer. And you know, from your teacher, we are learning about you in a classroom, how you engage with the material, how you engage with the teacher, something, you know, what you're thinking about, your strengths, your weaknesses, which is all really helpful information.
Right.
From the peer, though sometimes the teachers write nice recommendations, but again, we don't really feel like we know you as a unique individual. And I think usually because teachers don't know all of your quirks and eccentricities, and so from the peer evaluation, again, much like an interview, much like your own essay, I think that's a really neat opportunity for us who are reading your application to really feel like we're getting to know what you'd be like, you know, having a conversation face to face, or somebody who might be a roommate in a dorm, or a teammate, or someone you go on your freshman trip with. I mean, again, it's a sense of who you are as a whole person that, unless your teachers know you super, super well, aren't really going to be able to speak about kind of a day in the life, you know, day in your life kind of thing, and seeing you at your best and your worst, or 24 hours a day. So that's why I like the peer evaluation. We really get a sense of you as a whole person and not just as a student in a classroom.
Great. Okay, college bound. What do Dartmouth students like most about the school? Well, I guess.
Yes, you can do that.
I will take this one. You know, I have to say that the Dartmouth community is unlike anything else that I've ever really experienced. In terms of academics, it's wonderful, and, you know, opportunities I have here, but there's just a spirit kind of about the school, and I'm sure you can attest to this too, that you just find nowhere else. And, I mean, with the traditions and the community and the alumni network, it's just, so many people love this place.
Yeah.
And I think so many people feel at home here that, you know, it just makes it truly unique and one of the best places and most wonderful communities, I think, that's out there.
And I think when you talk to a lot of alums, I mean, they really point to the relationships with their faculty, with their fellow students, as being things that have really that really touch them, and that they continue to have these bonds and these connections to Dartmouth even after they've graduated. And so I think the opportunity to really get to know people here, I think, is really unique. And it's a diverse and exciting community of students, faculty, staff, people who live around the community, and there's a lot of really interesting people here who do interesting and exciting things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love talking about why I love Dartmouth. Okay, let's see. From TJF again, is it beneficial to do research in high school?
Well, you're going to do a lot of research at Dartmouth, so certainly having developed some of those research skills in high school will really prepare you for some of the expectations that the Dartmouth curriculum will have in terms of research. You know, some students have the opportunity in their school to do a lot of research, and if you have that opportunity and it's an interest to you, we'd certainly like to see that you've pursued that.
Right.
Some students won't have quite as much opportunity in school, and so if you haven't been able to do a lot of research, it's not going to penalize you in the application process. But certainly if you've done some research, again, it just gives you a sense of what are you going to need to do as a Dartmouth student.
Right.
I think in your first year you take a couple of different courses, a first-year seminar and a writing course that kind of introduce you to the research demands. I don't know from your experience what you thought about that.
No, I mean, because I started out with a basic writing class that, you know, really taught me what it was to write a college essay.
Right.
And then from there, you go into your freshman seminar, which really teaches you how to research for a college essay. And so, I mean, you are really provided with the tools here to learn that. So, I mean, if you do not have the opportunity to do research, or if it's something that's not of interest to you, I mean, you'll be fine coming into Dartmouth.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
if there's a great opportunity for you, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is more of a technical question from Re2D. Will having attended a magnet school, a prep school, be factored in when the Dartmouth admissions officer is reviewing an applicant's GPA?
Yeah, another great question. With every application that we review, we always want to understand the high school environment. So we will look very carefully to see what high school you've attended and what courses are offered in your high school, the level of rigor of the curriculum that you've chosen, your high school's grading system. One of the things that I think I didn't appreciate until I really got immersed in admissions work, you know, when you have 5,000 different high schools represented in your applicant pool, you've got 5,000 different, seems like, approaches to grading and curricular choices and educational philosophy. Even though schools might seem very similar on the surface, the schools are actually distinct, very distinctive. And so part of our work is really to understand the secondary school through your school profile and your transcript, and then take into consideration the courses you've had access to. You know, if you're applying from a high school where, you know, 100% of the kids are going on to four-year colleges like Dartmouth, and the top 40% of the class have GPAs within 1/10 of a point of each other, absolutely we're going to take that into account and recognize that this is a very high-achieving cohort in this particular high school. So absolutely, we will take all that into account as we review an application.
Okay. From Caroline G., where do you start when reading an application to Dartmouth?
Caroline, we start with your essay. And that's one of the things that we feel very strongly about. We want to hear first from each applicant in their own voice. What have you done? Who are you? What are some of the things that you're thinking about? And again, your essay, your extracurricular activities, the information that you provide on the common application gives us some insight into you as a whole person before we jump into your transcript and recommendations and standardized testing.
Okay. And from Re2D, I like this one. What is the best advice you can give to an applicant?
The best advice, again, thinking about my own daughter who says, Mom, what should I do? To be yourself and really not try to present yourself in ways that aren't true to who you are. I personally really value authenticity. And, you know, it doesn't mean that you can't have, you know, a teacher or a parent or a friend, you know, proofread an essay for you. But I think resist the temptation to try to present yourself in ways that aren't true to who you really are. You might not know, you might not realize this, but we can spot the unauthentic or inauthentic or disingenuous applicant. It really does come through because we look for patterns and trends and consistency from one part of the application to the next. So if you present yourself in a certain way in your personal statements, and nobody else talks about the things you've talked about, then we see a disconnect there and wonder, why did the student spend so much time describing him or herself in this way, and why is nobody else describing the student in those same ways? So definitely be yourself. There are no right or wrong answers. I also think that sometimes students feel, well, I'm not good enough. I haven't, you know, published a novel. I haven't, you know, invented some fancy new machine. I haven't, you know, saved the world. and that's not what it's about. It's about you as an individual. What do you like to do? What are your interests, your aspirations? And you don't have to have those kind of lofty resume items. It's just, you're a work in progress. We know that. And we'd like to see who you are today and imagine you as a student at Dartmouth. So be yourself and share with us whatever you'd like us to know about yourself.
Okay, and well, I guess building off of that, James' Perspective asked, is extracurricular diversity a significant part of the decision?
It's certainly part of our review, both your academic record, everything you've done academically, as well as your extracurricular record. We have a large student body, 4,000 undergraduates, well, large for a small college, but certainly small for a large university. Yeah, so it's all relative. But within that student body, we have tremendous diversity of extracurricular interests and talents. And I'd like to describe it as a spectrum. And we have some students who are very singularly focused in a particular area. So whether it's the performing arts or athletics or chess or hiking or rock climbing, we have students here who've really developed a singular passion. And then on the other end of the spectrum or continuum, we have students who kind of embody what you think about when you think about the traditionally well-rounded student, who are very active in a wide array of activities, who are making significant contributions in many different areas. And so anywhere you fit on that spectrum is fine. And so we welcome students with a range of interests and talents and perspectives. Some will be very focused in one or two areas. Others will be focused in multiple areas. And so we're happy and excited to include students in our community wherever they fall on that spectrum.
Right. It's certainly not going to rule anyone out.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay. So from Matt Z, is there a specific number of students Dartmouth can accept from a single high school?
There are no limits or quotas that we place on numbers of students accepted from a specific high school. When we read applications, we're really thinking about you as an applicant in context of the entire applicant pool. So you're not competing with your friends in your senior class at high school. Because I think students often worry. I'll go into a high school to talk about Dartmouth, and there'll be a group of seniors to see me, and they're all friends. Most of them have known each other for quite some time, and you can sense some tension. Well, if this student's applying to Dartmouth, I'm never going to get in, or vice versa. But you're not competing against your own classmates for a spot at Dartmouth. You're competing in our broad applicant pool, and we'll accept the students who not only have excelled academically, but whom we think will really contribute to Dartmouth, and they might be from the same high school, and that's totally fine with us. So.
Okay, and this is exciting. Well, considering that November 1st is
right around the corner. Yeah.
Eleni K.R. Greece wants to know, when do admissions officers start to read ED applications?
Our deadline is November 1, which is Monday. So a lot of students wait until the 11th hour to hit the submit button, and that's okay. So it will usually take us a couple of days to just process all the online submissions and get them downloaded and then uploaded into our file reading database. And also most of your teachers and counselors are still sending their part of the application via paper mail or snail mail. And so most of those are postmarked around the 1st of November. And so we need to allow a few days to collect the mail, to open and sort the mail and process that. So we'll probably start a few days after the deadline to make sure that all the pieces of the application arrive and can be assembled. But within a few days after the deadline, we'll start the process.
Okay.
And we're excited. We're looking forward to it.
No, it's coming up so soon. Okay, so Jabril of Florida is asking, is it beneficial if an applicant writes voluminously in the essay about what they plan on doing in the future and at Dartmouth and why?
I guess I wouldn't use the word voluminously as in a positive response to this question. If you're applying early decision, we know that Dartmouth is your first choice, so you don't need to convince us about why you think Dartmouth is great and how it fits into your life plan. But if there's something that you'd like, if you've got goals and aspirations, absolutely the essay is an opportunity to share those with us. And if Dartmouth fits, if you can draw some connections to the Dartmouth experience and why you think it's a great fit, that's certainly fine. We know, again, if you've applied early, we know that it's your first choice, and we're pleased to know that. You don't have to convince us of that in your essay.
Okay. From Timo. I've heard that you rate students' extracurricular activities on a 9 scale. How does this work?
Sure. We actually aren't using the 9-point scale, but we do have a scale that we use for our evaluation process. It's actually based on 5 points, not 9 this year. Excuse me. And really what we're trying to do is, as we read each application, really think about the candidates in 4 different dimensions.
Okay.
We're thinking about your tangible record of academic achievement.
Right.
So obviously the courses you've taken, the grades that you've made, the high school that you're coming from, standardized testing, recommendations. Those are all very tangible. So on a 1 to 5 scale, with 5 being the highest, we evaluate your academic record. We do something similar on the extracurricular side, again on that 1 to 5 scale. You know, I don't want to say that students who get 5s are only the ones who, you know, have written novels and, you know, won Olympic gold medals, but essentially the higher up you go on the scale, the more sort of distinctive you are as a candidate in our applicant pool. So that's how we use our scale. It really provides us with a way to convey to the next person who reads the application, this is what I thought of this candidate. So we have some narrative about each candidate as well as our own rating system. And that really helps us to remember and make note of the most distinctive parts of an application as we go through the reading process.
Okay. Now from Sherman, jumping back to interviews.
Yes.
Does Dartmouth allow for interviews outside of the U.S.?
It depends on the part of the world. We have a terrific network of alumni interviewers who volunteer to assist us with this important part of the admissions process. Most of our interviewers are in the United States. In a few areas around the world, we have alumni who are located in areas that are convenient for applicants. So we would not want an applicant to fly across a country or a continent to interview with a Dartmouth graduate. So that's why we don't require interviews. We certainly, if you're offered the opportunity, encourage you to have one, but also really important, if you're not offered the opportunity for an interview, either because there are no interviewers, again, within a sort of convenient distance of your hometown or your school, we're not going to penalize you. That's not going to be seen as a negative in your application.
That's great to know. And back to standardized testing, how much weight is applied to standardized tests?
Yeah, we don't assign specific weights to any piece of the application. It really is the whole. How does the whole come together? Some students will have higher scores than others. Some students will have higher GPAs than others. Some will have better essays than others. So it's really the whole picture that we try to put together. So no specific weights assigned to any portion of the application. But again, it's how do the pieces fit together. And again, that notion of consistency that I talked about earlier, so that every piece of the application is telling us a little bit more and it fits together in a logical sort of continuum. We get a sense of you as a student and a whole person. And every piece helps add to our understanding of you.
Okay. Okay, let's see. If I will not be able to apply early decision, how can I let you know that Dartmouth is my first choice?
Well, you could put it in a little note in the supplementary section of the common application. There's a place that you can just add additional information. So you could certainly put a little note in there. One of the things, again, because I'm also doing this as a parent, that I think is really important, you know, early decision is for students who are clear that Dartmouth is their first choice, and it's a great opportunity to get the whole process over with by early December, and then you can, you know, relax for the rest of your senior year. But a lot of students aren't ready to make that decision by November 1st, especially to a binding program, and that's okay. You know, when we get to regular decision, the fact that you didn't apply early won't be held against you. And we recognize that most students aren't ready to make that binding commitment by the 1st of November. So.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Is the writing score from the SAT or ACT included?
We receive the writing subscore from the SAT or the ACT. You know, as we think about your standardized testing, we think holistically. So if you took the SAT, you've got a critical reasoning, a math, and a writing score. We take a look at that. We understand it. We move on to the next part of your application. The same is true with the ACT. No student would ever be denied because, you know, one subscore on
right.
the exam.
You don't weigh one score higher or anything like that.
Again,
okay.
it's the whole picture. It's the composite of all the information that we collect. So we do look at it, but it certainly would not be the one factor that kept a student out who was otherwise a wonderful candidate.
Okay, great. Let's see. Okay, here we go. From Chase, how many early decision applicants are recruited athletes?
Sure. Well, it varies from year to year and from sport to sport, but a lot of athletic recruiting in the Ivy League does happen through the early decision process.
Program, right.
So I don't know yet because we don't have all the applications in hand, but I think it's fair to say that for many sports, they do most of their recruiting through early decision,
right.
and a lot of times for the most talented student athletes, they're also being recruited by non-Ivy schools, so Division I schools across the country who have the opportunity to go after these students even earlier than the Ivy League does. And so I think we want to make sure that the student athlete really has the opportunity to make a thoughtful and informed decision, but recognize that there are some other pressures around recruiting that they feel, particularly from schools that offer athletic scholarships, because the Ivy League does not offer athletic scholarships. And so we would hate for a student to not be aware of all their opportunities before making this very important decision.
Right.
So that's why most of the athletic recruiting in the Ivy League does happen in the early decision time period.
Okay, great. From Sheila, can you talk a little bit about supplements? If I'm not planning on majoring in the arts, do these still help?
Sure. The answer is yes, but a qualified yes.
Okay.
I think what we'd like you to do is, because we do send these supplements to the departments, the studio art, music, film and television studies, the theater department, as well as the dance program within the theater department. And so I think if we are asking our faculty to invest time to review these materials, we're hoping that the students who submit the supplements have more than just a passing interest in continuing their work in this field. So whether it's the visual arts, the performing arts, film, digital humanities, any of those areas, we're hoping that you're just not doing that to perhaps try to gain an advantage in the system, but you're doing it because this form of art is something that's really important to you, and even though you don't want to major in it, you want to continue to build your skill and be a part of the arts community at Dartmouth. So if you'd like to continue to work in the arts, again, maybe it's avocationally and not academically, then certainly I would encourage you to submit the supplement. If it's something that you really don't intend to do as a student at Dartmouth, then I would ask that you perhaps not submit that supplement then.
Right, and on that note, I remember I actually submitted a theater supplement, and it got me in touch with the theater department.
Right, exactly.
It was actually a really great opportunity just to start conversations there, and last year I was able to be involved in a few department shows. And I mean, through that sense, it got me in touch with people that I otherwise might not have gotten in touch with.
I think the faculty get really excited when they see students with a lot of talent and ability who want to come to Dartmouth and will reach out to you. So it is a great opportunity if it's something you want to do at Dartmouth and you want to continue. Our faculty will really be very excited to have the opportunity to work with you.
Okay, and let's see, can you send research/art supplements after the ED deadline? This is
connected to the prior question.
Right.
Yes, I would just ask that you not wait too much longer, especially for early decision. We have such a narrow window of opportunity to get these materials to the departments, and so we'd like to get this done and back to us before Thanksgiving. So we're really talking about 3 weeks. So I realize it can take a little bit more time to pull together an art supplement or some information on some research that you've done, but try to get it in as close to the deadline as you can, just so that we have the turnaround time to get it out to the departments.
Okay. Let's see. From E. Williams, do you take into account the limited opportunities of a small town school?
Yes, we definitely do. Again, much like the earlier question about the academic rigor of a high school, very much we take into account that not every school is going to offer an extensive array of extracurricular activities. And so if your school doesn't have that kind of breadth of opportunity, you'll not be penalized for that. The other thing also, I mean, some students don't have perhaps the flexibility or the opportunity to be involved in extracurriculars. Maybe they need to hold down a part-time job, or they've decided to hold down a part-time job to either save money for college or help with family finances. Many of our applicants have home responsibilities for younger siblings. Maybe parents are working, and so the student needs to come home after school to babysit siblings, make dinner, get homework done, all that kind of stuff. So those things are equally important to us as a traditional set of extracurricular activities. We're looking for evidence that you've been engaged in some kind of pursuits outside of the classroom, but again, it could be home, it could be work, it could be community service, church organizations, as well as traditional school involvements.
Okay. From Michaela, you mentioned 85% of students live on campus all 4 years. Does everyone live in dorms, or are there other alternatives? Well, there are other alternatives.
It's a small town, though.
It is a small town. So, but there are a bunch of off-campus housing options if you so choose to live off campus. One of your 4 years, you are required to live on campus your freshman year.
Right.
But besides that, it's up to you. And I know there are a bunch of houses and apartments in the town of Hanover that are mostly occupied by students.
Right.
So there are other options. But the dorms here are great, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, and I think as a residential college, we really value
people living on campus.
People living on campus and living together, and just the learning and everything else that goes on in the dorm. Right.
No, and I know there's so many cool housing programs and affinity groups, and I mean, just so many great opportunities on campus. So check that out before you go off campus. Okay, so let's see, from Lenny. Can I join a varsity sport if I'm not recruited?
I think just about every sport has an opportunity for students to walk on to the team. So every sport's going to be different, but certainly in your the fall of your first year, or I guess whatever term that the sport competes, definitely encourage you to be in touch with the coach and ask about the opportunities to walk on. But I do think there is some sort of tryout walk-on period just about for every program.
I'm sure, yeah. Okay, a question for me from Nikki. What do students do to unwind? Wow. I mean, what do I do to unwind?
You do admissions chats.
I do admissions chats to unwind. I'm also involved in a few extracurriculars here at Dartmouth. I do a lot of student theater, which is one of my really great, I guess, just time to unwind. I mean, it really, gives me a chance to pursue things outside of the classroom, outside of my academics, but also, working hard on other things and creating a show, creating pieces like that. We have a really wonderful social environment here on campus, a lot of which actually is fostered through, where we are. Just New Hampshire is so beautiful, and the land that surrounds the college is one of my favorite things about it. So last year, I took a rock climbing class as kind of this PE, and every Tuesday I would go out and climb for 4 hours. I've never really rock climbed before, but 20 minutes off of campus are some great rocks, and so it was great. It was the perfect thing to do to unwind. I would have my 3 classes, and then I would go climb for a few hours and be back and do work, and it was great. So, there are really ample opportunities, and whether you want it to be an extracurricular that you really focus time and energy on, or whether you want it to be a PE class, or anything. There's so much stuff here, so you won't be short of opportunities.
Right. You'll be busy, but you'll find ways to unwind.
Yes, you will. Okay. And from Matt, how was your experience on the DOC trips? DOC trips are my favorite time here at Dartmouth. From my freshman trip, it's funny. My freshman trip was fishing, and then I actually led the same trip.
Had you fished before?
I fished a fair amount.
I didn't
so
know.
it was kind of this random coincidence that it all worked out. But it's kind of your first experience at Dartmouth, and you meet all of these people right away, and you're just kind of thrust into this dancing, fun, wonderful time. And if you want to know all about DOC trips, there's actually a DOC chat link on the prospective students website, so you can go there and find out all sorts of information more than I can tell you and that we have time for here. But know that it was one of my favorite times and experiences here on campus. It's the first time you really meet people and bond with your class, and your trippies or the other students that go on the trip with you are kind of your first friends. And
right. And these groups stay together almost even into alumnihood, right?
Right. I know. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, meeting people that are having trippy reunions, their senior year.
Right.
It's, really your first family here.
Yeah.
So now, let's see. Additionally, what do we have here? Okay. What is the difference between the counselor rec and the peer rec? So
back to a technical admissions question. Yeah. Well, certainly from a very sort of practical standpoint, the counselor recommendation is your guidance counselor or principal or a school official who really can speak to kind of the entirety of your high school experience. So it really tells us about certainly your academic performance, your extracurricular involvements, sometimes a bit about you as a person, if they know you well. It sort of also puts you in context of your secondary school, so gives some comparative sense, so compared to others in the senior class or other students that the counselor has worked with over the years of his or her career. Again, just gives us a sense, an official sense of your overall kind of trajectory as a student and a person in that school community. Your peer recommendation, I think, is much more kind of anecdotal and conversational.
Yeah.
Again, we use that sort of conversational tone before when talking about the alumni interview, but the peer is that way as well. It's I like to think of it as, it's your best friend, it's your sibling, someone who knows you really, really well, who tells us what you're really like.
Right.
Your counselor, even if they know you well, they really don't know you that well. So, your peer's going to know, I think, more about your quirks and eccentricities, maybe your kind of secret likes and your fears and the things that keep you up late at night, or the things that make you really happy, or the silly things that you do to kind of unwind as a high school senior. So again, through the peer, we learn about you as a person in ways that we're not going to learn from anybody else. And it's a really fun, I think it's a fun part of the application.
It's a great part of the application.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, what if I do a lot of extracurriculars now, but did not do a lot for the last 3 years? Does this hurt me?
Nothing really hurts you in the application process unless you've falsified your application or forged a document. I do think we're going to, most applicants to Dartmouth have had a pretty consistent pattern of engagement in extracurricular activities over the course of their 4 years. But some students definitely start out with fewer and then add more as they progress through high school. I think most important is just to tell us why. Maybe there were things that you had to do in 9th, 10th, or 11th grade that precluded spending lots of time in extracurricular activities, or maybe, again, caring for younger siblings, or perhaps a grandparent living at home. And there could be so many reasons why a student has fewer activities in 9th and 10th or 11th grade and then adds more in senior year. And so that's fine, again, as long as we understand why. So you don't just give us a list and kind of leave it at that. But if you'd like to tell us a little bit about what you've done and why, that will help us, when we look at your list of activities, understand, again, some of the decisions that you made, some of the things that are most important to you, and it helps us put in context your list of activities.
Right. Okay. From Nick, how important is the 150-word essay on the Common App?
By that, I think Nick is referring to the your favorite activity or most meaningful extracurricular activity. Again, in your list of extracurricular activities, most students will put several things down, and you're supposed to put them in sort of order of importance to you. A lot of students applying to Dartmouth do a lot of similar kinds of activities. To just look at that resume or list doesn't really always help us understand why you've chosen to do something. So I actually think this little 150-word, say paragraph, not essay, a blurb, it's an opportunity for you to really tell us, this has been most important to me. And it might not be the first thing on your list. It might not be the thing that you have an elected leadership position in. It might be something you just started your senior year. But for some reason, this is the most meaningful to you. So it helps us, again, put in perspective what can sometimes be a somewhat confusing and lengthy list, and it helps draw our attention to what it is that you'd like us to know, that you think is most important about all the things that you've done.
Okay. Now, jumping back to the peer rec, actually, Jade is wondering, is a peer rec mandatory?
It's not mandatory, but if you can submit one, or if a peer can submit one on your behalf, we certainly like to have that to round out the application. But you know, as I said, we're collecting your own essays, your letters of recommendation, all of which are required. Obviously, your transcript, your testing, your school profile, all those pieces of the application we do require. The peer recommendation and the interview are the two optional, so they're not required. But certainly, if you can have a peer write a letter on your behalf, we would appreciate having that perspective on you.
And on that same note, Matt Worth is wondering, what guidelines can I give to my friend for writing the peer rec?
Well, again, honesty, authenticity, genuineness. We don't want to know from your peer, we don't want to know your GPA or your SAT scores, but we'd like to know from your peer what you're like to have as a friend or classmate, a study partner, a teammate, any of those things. That's really helpful for us to know. I would caution students to be careful whom they ask to write their peer recommendation. They're usually very, very positive. I don't know what happened last year. I seem to recall 2 or 3 different peer recs where it must have been a jilted boyfriend or girlfriend who wasn't the most flattering.
Yeah, so not the best idea.
Yeah, exactly. Think carefully about who you asked to write that recommendation.
Right. Okay. From Cool Dude. Does Dartmouth still use the academic index formula during the admissions process?
The academic index is really a tool used by the Ivy League to monitor athletic recruiting. And so we actually don't use that in the admissions process, except as we think about monitoring the recruitment of student athletes. And that really happens sort of at the beginning of the process as the coaches are out developing their pool of recruits. And then obviously we have to be mindful of that in the selection process of the recruited athletes. For all applicants, you know, again, it's a holistic and individualized review. There is no one magic number or set of numbers that will guarantee admission to Dartmouth. And so, yeah, that's the answer to that question.
Okay. And let's see. We're actually getting close, but we still have a few minutes for a few more questions. And also, if you don't get all of your answers, we do have a bunch of resources online that hopefully you will be able to access. So here we go. Before we finish up, are PE classes and intramural sports available?
Well, you took rock climbing for PE.
Yes, I took rock climbing for PE. Yes, they are available. Both. You actually are required to take 3 PE classes over your 4 years at Dartmouth, which I think is great. It kind of just like gives you the opportunity to go out and try rock climbing. You can take a PE or a skiing class for your PE. Then PE can also be, you know, kickboxing, aerobics, or
yoga,
yoga,
yoga
Pilates, the fusion. No. But no, yes, there's tons available, and there absolutely lists on student section of our website. And let's see. Okay, from College Bound, is there anything Dartmouth would change about the admissions process?
Well, I wish we had a little more time.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, your professor gives you or your teacher gives you a big assignment. You can't ask for more time. You know, the due date is the due date. And as our applicant pool has grown, that's made it really, really difficult.
Sure.
So, you know, from that perspective, sure, I wish we had more time, but realistically we don't. You know, from a parent perspective, I wish the process weren't as stressful as it is on students. And again, before my kids were sort of high school age, I don't know that I really appreciated, because certainly when I applied to college, it was a lot less stressful than it is today. So, you know, I think about, you know, can we make this process less stressful for students? I realize there's so much buildup around admissions, you know, throughout the entire high school career, let alone the senior fall. You know, I think we're in an interesting place. I do feel like we have lots of information on all of our applicants that allows us to make, I think, we make very thoughtful decisions. We don't have the opportunity to meet everybody face to face. You know, I've often wondered, you know, could we use technology to meet everybody face to face? And the thought of a Skype interview with almost 19,000 students would be, I think, difficult to arrange. So, you know, I think our process is a really thoughtful and fair one. We do unfortunately have to turn away a lot of students who we know would be terrific here. So in some sense, I wish Dartmouth could double in size, because then we could admit more students.
More students,
So I know that people will quickly point to the flaws in the process. If you have suggestions, please send them our way. We're curious to know what you think about the process. But I guess I'd just like people to recognize that we take a lot of care with what you send us, and do really try to get to know you as best we can as a three-dimensional person, even though you're all virtual to us because we read online. So
right. And I guess a follow-up to, are you expecting more applicants this year?
It's really looking that way.
Okay.
So again, on the one hand, it's always good to be a popular choice for students, and we're really thrilled when students identify Dartmouth either through early as a clear first choice or in
right.
regular as one of many schools that they could really see themselves. I mean, that's we feel really great when students can identify with Dartmouth that way. Obviously, it makes the admissions process that much more competitive
right.
and selective, and so it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but that is sort of the reality that we have to deal with.
Okay, and I think we have one more question. How long do admissions officers spend per application?
Sure. Well, from start to finish, at least 2 different people will see most applications. Sometimes 3 or more people, depending upon the complexity or the intricacy of the candidacy. We wish we could spend a long time, but realistically we can't. So we might be spending about 10 minutes per application on the first review, but we have a multiple review process, so others will have a chance to take a look at that application as it continues through the process. There are some students who really do stand out right away, and so first impressions can lead us to think this is a terrific student, but we'll still make sure that we look at all the pieces of the application. And earlier we had a question about the bad GPA.
Right.
We won't discount a student until we've really looked at all the important pieces of the application. So we really want to make sure that we take the thought and care that you put into preparing the application
Absolutely.
In our review.
Okay. Well, I guess we are coming close to the end of our chat. So a few quick announcements. The office hours Dartmouth edition is every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and the office hours student edition question answer is every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So tune into those chats if you have any more questions about Dartmouth. They'll be focused on other topics.
Other aspects. Right.
And if you do have any more questions about admissions, visit our website. Lots of information is there, and
right.
I'm sure that they can, send
right.
in other questions if need
Absolutely,
be.
and we'll try to answer other questions either via the website, or we've got the Discover Dartmouth Facebook group.
Right.
And if any of your friends would like to tune in, this is going to be archived, so you'll be able
right.
to come back to it later. We'll probably do one for regular decision applicants as well. So if you are thinking of applying regular and want to catch a second chat, we will have another one later in December, a similar sort of last-minute application tips kind of chat.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Okay, Jenny, it was fun. Yeah.
This was great. Thank you
Thank
all
you,
for
everyone.
tuning in.